Yeah, it's not something you see every day. A locomotive designed to pull freight has now become just another piece of cargo. Norfolk Southern number 5349 is an electromotive division GP38-2. This is an ex-Conrail engine that was built in 1978. Of course, it's far from factory fresh, but there's also a good bit of damage here. From missing number boards to bent handrails and busted lights. And obviously its trucks are missing, which is why it needs this flat car to get where it's going. So what happened? Well, the locomotive ended up on its side after derailing in Brunswick, Georgia on April 26, 2024. The Glenn County Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency said in a Facebook post that there were no injuries, but there was a diesel fuel leak. As with many derailments, these huge side boom tractors were called in to get the engine back on track. So, what was the official cause of the derailment? Well, according to accident data as reported by railroads available on the Federal Railroad Administration's website, the Norfolk Southern locomotive hit a portable derail that was installed by CSX Maintenance of Way workers. I think there were a couple of typos in the narrative here, but we can still understand what happened. The accident data said this happened on CSX's Newcastle lead in Brunswick, and the train speed was 10 miles per hour. According to the accident data, CSX Maintenance of Way, quote, placed a portable derail 25 inches from a road crossing and approximately 15 car lengths from the switches and did not make the track inaccessible. The data says the Norfolk Southern crew was not made aware that Maintenance of Way was working, and the NS crew even made a radio call on the CSX channel before entering the track and received no answer. 2 cause codes from the FRA's guide for preparing accident incident reports were included for all this. H993, which is human factor, track, and H607, which is failure to comply with restricted speed or its equivalent, not in connection with a block or interlocking signal. Now, it appears the locomotive was running long hood forward when it hit that portable derail. And here's an example of what I mean by running long hood forward. Basically, the locomotive is running in reverse with the cab in the rear. This is actually extremely common. It's often too time-consuming or just not possible to turn a locomotive when it's time to run it in the opposite direction. Fortunately, diesel-electric locomotives like these can run at the same speed going either direction. And if you were wondering, this engine is also an EMD GP38-2. It wears a special training first responders paint scheme and is usually hooked up to a train that trains first responders on how to deal with emergencies on the railroad. So you may also be curious about the device that caused this accident. I actually did a full video about derails, and I'll have that for you in the end screen, but here are some of the basics. Derails can be both portable and permanent. First, here's an example of a portable derail. Meanwhile, the permanent ones come in a few different varieties and can be powered and remotely controlled, but most are unlocked manually with a key. Now, Norfolk Southern and CSX both have small yards near this location, so why might an NS train be on CSX tracks? Common reasons might be trackage rights, where one railroad agrees to let another railroad run on its tracks for a fee. Another reason might be a transfer job, where cars are picked up at one railroad's facility and moved to a different company's system. Run-through trains are also very common, but they're typically long distance and originate on one railroad and terminate on the other. Crews are typically swapped out when the train goes from one railroad to another. Basically, the host railroad will use its employees while the train is on its territory. So, what's next for this engine? Well, from what I've been able to gather, it's headed to Norfolk Southern's Juniata Locomotive Shop in Altoona, Pennsylvania. For more than a century, this facility has been repairing, maintaining, and even building locomotives. And hopefully this one will be back on the rails soon.